There we go. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome, members, officers, and anybody who's joining us at home. Extend a very warm welcome to our Learning and Skills Scrutiny Committee. Single item agenda today, joint inspection of child protection arrangements, the JIPCA. But we start with apologies for absence, please.
Yes, Chair, we've got apologies from Councillor David Meredith. He's on annual leave. Apologies from councillors, cabinet members, Pete Roberts, David Thomas, Jackie Charlton. And we've got apologies from Jane Thomas, Director of Corporate Services.
Thank you very much. Just to mention, Councillor Pete has got a funeral today, so it was unavoidable. So I just mentioned that. Any other apologies that anybody'd like to give? If not, I'll go to item 2 on the agenda, disclosure of interests. If there are any, I doubt, and similarly at item 3, declarations of party whip. Judging on your silence. Okay, so we'll move on to item 4 on the agenda. It's to sign the minutes of previous meeting, obviously, if correct. 2 sets of minutes. The one of the 17th of November 23. They're in pages 3 to 22. Any member like to propose them as a true and correct record? Yeah, thanks, Councillor Lucy, and seconded by.
I second it, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sue. Thank you. Unless anybody brings to my attention anything in relation to those minutes, are you happy to move on to the second set? Good. The second set of minutes are the 13th of December 23. Members, I'm looking for a proposal on a seconder to sign them as a true and correct record. Don't all shout around. Councillor Lucy once again.
Yes, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Sue. Councillor Lucy and Councillor Sue, you're my rocks today by the look of it. So that's those minutes. Any comments on them minutes, or I'm happy to move on to the next agenda item, which is item 5 on your agenda, and that's the joint inspection of child protection arrangements, abbreviated as the JICPA. I'm just looking to any portfolio comment in the first instance, or I'm happy to go to officers to take us through this. I noticed Lynette, you've joined us. Welcome. Have any of the portfolios joined, Councillor Richard or Councillor Sue? Don't think they have they?
No, I can't see them, Chair.
Okay, right. We'll move on to Lynette or Sarah for comment. I'm in your hands, really, to take us through the report, and then we'll give an opportunity to comment and questions.
Thank you, Chair. So I'll just introduce the JICPA report, etc., to you, and Sarah will take you through. We've got a brief presentation to take you through. Just so that the committee are aware, so the joint inspection of child protection arrangements is an inspection that takes place in local authorities and health boards and the police. So in Powys, the inspectors that were involved in all of this are the police inspectorate, the health inspectorate, Estin, of course, for the council, for the education part, which we're looking into today, and CIW in terms of children's services. What we're looking at in this scrutiny session today is the output from the inspection report in terms of the education. The full report was published a couple of weeks ago, actually on in early February. And in terms of that inspection report, you will note from the report that it makes comments on all of the various agencies. What I do want to say here today is that one of the key aspects of the inspection is looking at those joint partnership arrangements and showing the strength. And I think it was very pleasing to see that in the report, our joint working across child protection arrangements in all of the service areas has been strong. So I think there's a lot to celebrate in this inspection report. There's a lot for all agencies, but for us as a council, it's the education we're looking at today. But in terms of education and children's services, it was a very robust inspection. It was a full week's inspection and about 20 inspectors. And so it was very thorough, robust in terms of education as well. Just for your assurance, they did go out to visit schools. There were a number of schools that they visited in that week. So they actually saw first-hand evidence in the schools. They also looked at, as they do, at the reports and the paperwork that we have around all of our child protection arrangements and how we work effectively as a partnership. So they looked at all of that, triangulated it all. This took place in October last year, and the report was published in February. So there are obviously, as in all inspection reports, there are strengths identified and there are areas for improvement. And we have 6 weeks now to pull together an action plan, a joint action plan to go to the regulators to show how we're going to address some of the areas for improvement within the report. But if it's okay with you now, Chair, I want to hand over to Sarah Quibell, who will take you through a short presentation, which just takes the high level aspects of the report in terms of education only today. So if that's okay, Chair, I'll hand over to Sarah to take you through the presentation. Diolch yn fawr.
Diolch, Lynette. Thank you very much. Members, Sarah, welcome. In your hands.
Just sharing my screen, Chair. Has that come across?
Yeah, no, that's with us. Thank you very much. There we go.
I'll just put it on slideshow. So yeah, as Lynette introduced, the presentation of the inspection took place in October between the 16th and 20th, but the report is very newly published and was only published on the 1st of February. So that's why we wanted to take an early opportunity to bring it to your attention. So in summary, safeguarding organisations in Powys have systems and arrangements in place for effective joint working when children are considered at risk of abuse or neglect. Senior leaders in the local authority, police and health boards demonstrated a joint approach to regional safeguarding arrangements. Leaders and managers have established a highly positive culture of joint multi-agency working. There's effective information sharing. There's useful regional threshold guidance. There's also a shared understanding around child protection arrangements. There's opportunities for partnership working that are positively taken up. Schools work well with a wide range of services to support children. Pupil wellbeing and safety is a high priority across all schools. And as Lynette mentioned, there were visits to schools and also there were particular deep dives around individual pupil cases. There is a however, and they state that as is the case across the whole of Wales, the ability to recruit and retain key staff is impacting on children's safeguarding arrangements, which is exacerbated by high demand on the services and the increasing complexity of need. So those are the high-level statements from the summary. The report itself is laid out in 4 key areas. So there's well-being, people, partnership and integration, and prevention. In each of those sections, it looks at the strengths and areas for improvement and focuses a section on each partner. So we're just going to look at education, as Lynette mentioned, and we've also touched on the partnership working. So in terms of well-being, looking at the partnership working, there's clear identification of need, prompt and effective response, good multi-agency attendance at child protection meetings, followed by a good understanding of the roles and responsibilities within that. There is a however around referrers are not consistently told about outcomes, and children's direct contribution in conferences is rare. When we're looking at the education section of the wellbeing element, there's good support for families in place. We prioritise pupil wellbeing and safety. Teachers plan purposeful activities. And in all schools that were visited, the pupils felt happy, well cared for, safe and listened to, which I think is key. The role of the designated safeguarding lead in schools is particularly effective, and local authority officers understand their roles and responsibilities in keeping learners safe. There is a strengthened culture of safeguarding at corporate and school level. And of course, we've seen the Corporate Safeguarding Board introduced in recent times with the corporate safeguarding policy So that's really thought to bolster our arrangements in terms of central understanding and our liaison with schools. However, there is further work needed to improve school audits, particularly in relation to linking fixed term exclusion numbers to the audit. I wondered if there were any questions around that section before I moved on to the next one. Or would you like me to proceed?
Yeah, no, that's a good point. Let's deal with some things that have popped up. Anybody got any questions? Nothing's coming forward. I'd like to start.
Sorry, Chair, can I? Oh, sorry.
Go on, Sue.
Oh, I can see Alice's hand. I should have put my hand up. Sorry.
No, go on, Sue. You go first.
Thank you. I was just wondering, Sarah, in one of your previous slides, you said about, you know, the problems we had retaining staff, and so what are we doing now to make sure that going forward we have the right staff in place?
I just come in there, councillor, is that okay? I think that's the overall summary, and I think that is mainly referring to social workers, etc.,
Yes.
services. That national issue around social services is what's identified there.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Lynn.
Then you have got your hand up as well. Do you want to?
Yeah, if no one was
on.
going to mention, but I don't know whether Councillor Allen might come up with it anyway.
Go on then. We'll go to Aled then.
Yeah, go to Aled and then Councillor.
No. It Sue's picked it up really. I was going to ask whether it's children's services or education, and the issues with also potentially having a lot of part-time agency social workers, with that relationship between the schools and their lack of understanding. I can see you're nodding there, and I'm assuming, are you going to come to elective home educated children? To come, yes, Sarah.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. That's I'll leave that. Thanks.
Go on, Lynette, make your comment now then, please.
Yeah, I was just going to come in just with a comment really, that you can see overall in terms of well-being for education, it's strong. The one, however, which will go into our action plan now, is around the fixed term exclusion numbers. In that, ensure, you know, there has been a rise in fixed term exclusions, and ensuring that the safeguarding arrangements around those fixed term exclusions are robust. This will be put part of the action plan that we provide right now going forward. So just to assure you that that is something that will be in the action plan. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Lynette. Just a quick comment or an assumption, or looking for a response, really. You said there was good attendance by multi-agency partners. Just looking for a bit of assurance, and it's having sat on public service boards for some time, good attendances, but there's no consistency on the attendees. Is this the case with this, or are our partners quite willing just to throw anybody in there just to fulfill the duties, or is there some consistency on this?
Yeah, so this is in terms of school staff and their attendance at multi-agency meetings. So in terms of child protection and child protection arrangements, there's core groups and child protection case conferences, and what they're seeing from what they saw when they came in is that schools are fully involved in those multi-agency meetings. The comment on the slide back relates to whether or not the outcome of things is always reported back to schools, actually, but it's more the school staff are actually well represented in those multi-agency meetings is what they found.
Okay, I'm content with that. If there's no other questions, we'll allow Sarah to continue.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Chair. So the next section was people. In terms of partnership working, there's a good understanding of need and risk when supporting young children, young people. There's good strategic working. There's a child-centred approach, which is evident. There's competent and experienced professionals working in child protection in Powys. There's commitment to continuous improvement. But it does note the increase of electively home educated children and the requirement for a multi-agency approach to provide assurance about those children. When we're looking at education specifically, the report outlines that the Director of Education has a clear, strategic and well-considered vision to ensure schools are safe. That a high priority is given to safeguarding so that everybody understands that safeguarding is everybody's responsibility. The restructure has resulted in effective working arrangements. The lead elected member demonstrates a high priority to safeguarding. There's beneficial work being undertaken around children missing education. And school leaders are also confident in safeguarding and support. We have a model called Team Around the School, where schools are able to attend cluster meetings on a kind of partnership and multi-agency basis. And what came out of the inspections was that schools really valued that Team Around the School model. School staff undertake regular safeguarding training, and the expectation is that governors do also. I have to say we've had excellent uptake on our governor safeguarding training in this academic year. The however here is around processes for monitoring electively home education, children who are electively home educated, that they require strengthening, and there needs to be more opportunity for designated safeguarding leads to meet to support each other. So as Lynette said in the previous section, these howevers will be built into our action plan to make sure that we're responding to those areas for improvement. Shall I pause there again, Chair?
Yeah, no, there are some questions popped up there, Sarah. So I think Lucy, you were first, please.
Thanks, Chair. And sorry, Aled, I might be jumping in on your question, I'm not sure, but I just wanted to ask about the responsibility for meeting with home educated children. I wasn't quite clear when I read the report whose responsibility it was to actually make contact with those home educated children and go and see them, as is suggested should be done in the report.
So that sits currently with the education welfare team, so part of the school service support. And yeah, they make contact with parents, offer visits. Parents aren't required to engage, but we are really proactively supporting and communicating with all of those parents, making sure that how we arrange the visits is suited to their needs as well as individual families. And when we had the most recent annual figures shared for all of Wales, it showed that there was only 2% of electively home educated families in Powys from that set of data that we hadn't been able to get in contact with. However, we had tried.
Okay, thanks, Sarah, that's encouraging. And I meant to say that thank you for the report as a whole, because I thought it was generally very positive and a pleasing read certainly from an education perspective.
Yeah, agreed. Councillor Aled.
Thank you, George Gwynfor. Yeah, you talk about 2% of the children you haven't been able to contact or interact with of the home educated. What sort of numbers have we got across Powys, and are you confident that you are aware of them all? Because families can move across borders and slip in and out of local authorities without without much knowledge, really.
Yeah, absolutely. We are feeling quite confident. We currently have around 350 children who are electively home educated. That's not necessarily 350 families, because there may be multiple siblings in a family who are electively home educated. The team have done a significant amount of work over the last couple of years, commencing in the pandemic when we had a rise in electively home educated numbers, really making sure that we're reaching out to all of those families, providing the support that we're able to, and ensuring that those children are receiving a suitable education.
Thank you, Sarah. And obviously the report reads well about children who are actually in school, and the education team are aware of, and they can be supportive. But you did mention on the previous slide as well about the fixed term exclusion. Children that sometimes just don't fit into mainstream education. I'm slightly surprised there's no reference to the PIU in this report. Was the PIU visited? Because I would have thought the PIU would play an important role in some of the most vulnerable ones who don't automatically slip into mainstream education. And but then again, I hear it sometimes is really difficult to get a child referred to the PIU and a place within the PIU. Multiple attempts have been made. I don't want to talk about any individual, but I hear of some missing a couple of years of education, having been admitted to hospital with self-harm issues and still can't get into the PIU or some sort of supportive environment for that child. Was a PIU visited at all, and what's that relationship?
Well, I think
Lynette
Lynette
wants to come in.
wants to jump in.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in here. So the way the inspection worked was whatever children they chose to look at. So they chose children, numbered children, etc. And wherever those children went to school, those were the schools. It could, it could be the Prue, it could be a special school, it could have been a mainstream school. So whatever schools those children that they identified to look and deep dive into and to look at records of, those were the schools that were chosen. I can't identify where and what they were, but the schools were identified according to where the children had their education.
Okay, and those children just weren't randomly selected. They were selected according to risk, were they or not?
They were randomly selected. So what we had to do, so whatever, or what you have to do is, so Children's Services had to send in all of the current cases that we have open under child protection arrangements in Powys, and then they are randomly selected by the inspectorate. So, and then, as I say, wherever they went to school, those were the schools that were visited.
Okay. Yeah. And my concern is it's fairly relatively big cohort, and I don't know what sort of sample size there was. But when a PIU only has half a dozen children, possibly, or a dozen children, the chances of being one of those is quite slim. But
well, it could be, but then yeah, as you say, I mean, in terms of the sample size, there were over 200 in the original. Then they boiled it down to 20. Then they bring it down to 10, and then eventually there's 10 for one aspect of work and 6 deep dives. So that's how it worked. Yeah.
Okay,
So it could be in any school, or Prue, wherever.
Thanks, Lynette. Margaret, please.
Yeah, with the increased numbers of home educated, it's always been an area that's difficult to deal with, and it hasn't changed in that respect, and locating and monitoring it. But with the increased number, does it put too much pressure on the people who are making contact and keeping in touch with these families? Have we got, the staffing requirement for that? But the other one is as well, how often then, when you've made contact to the home educated child, how often after that do we keep the contact? How do we manage that? Because things change for these children, don't they?
Absolutely. And we changed the model. We did have a model in place where there were a couple of specific members of staff supporting electively home educated families. But in recognition of the numbers, and also to provide that continuity of support across the whole academic career, the whole of the education welfare team is now supporting with that. And that means that if a child is in school in that cluster, they would be supported by that member of staff. If the family choose to electively home educate, they would still be supported by the same member of staff, and even if they choose to go back to school. So having that continuity of support in place was really, really important. In terms of the requirements of communication, parents are required to send in an annual report on every year. However, many families want a lot more frequent contact, and the team would be they'd go with what the family wants, really. So some families are in contact quite a lot, some just want a little bit and often, but really we try and tailor our communication to the family's needs.
Okay, happy with that, Margaret? Okay, great stuff. Okay, nobody else indicated. Sarah, happy to move on.
Okay, lovely. Thank you, Chair. So the next section is partnership and integration. So in the partnership working section, it outlined that Powys contributes significantly to the Regional Safeguarding Board, that relationships are well established between partners, that the Junior Safeguarding Board represents the views of children well. There's innovative multi-agency work happening in Powys. There's effective commissioning. There's strong and established professional working, and there's detailed record keeping across agencies. However, there needs to be a joint understanding of the threshold documents, and that needs strengthening. So looking at the education section,
Just before you go there, Sarah, just explain threshold documents.
Okay, so there's a regional threshold document that's for all professionals to use, so they can really understand at which points they may approach for support from children's services. And for example, in the updated safeguarding audit that we issued to schools at the beginning of the academic year, that had an explicit question added to it, ensuring that schools were having that discussion with their staff and staff were really familiar with that document. So I think the comment, because it was under the partnership working section, it was a comment against all partners rather than specifically about education.
Okay, thanks, Sarah. Okay.
Then in terms of education, again, it recognised strong working practices between schools and other agencies. Also, again, recognising the team around the cluster model. Saying that schools contribute fully when invited to child protection conferences and reviews, so picking up on that earlier comment on an earlier slide, and also that schools prioritise the importance of safeguarding their pupils and provide a range of purposeful support. And I think that really came out in some of the audits that happened within the JICPA inspection, and then also noting that most schools keep appropriate records. So on that section, there wasn't a however for education.
Good.
Do you want me to pause there, Chair, for a second?
Yes, I do, because Councillor Lucy's got her hand up. And Councillor Allen.
Thank you. I was just going to ask, the word most schools, I'm guessing that's Eston speak. So there are schools that aren't keeping appropriate records. And what are we doing to address that?
They didn't visit all schools, so but it is something that is in our safeguarding audit, you know, clearly outlining the need for appropriate safeguarding records to be kept as well. So we're reinforcing the message that way. Okay, so it could be just the fact that they've used that term because they didn't visit the schools rather than there was necessarily an issue. Yes, could be, yes. Okay, thank you.
Yes, Lucy. Councillor Allen, please.
Thank you, Gunnar. It's just an overall comment, really. It's slightly frustrating that this report comes to us at this stage rather than waiting to see what actions Powys are going to put in place before it goes off to the regulators to review. But I guess it will come back. The actions will come back to this committee at some point. Just quick comment, really, about partnership. Clearly, the Welsh government removed the in their Welsh in their budget I can't remember what it was called, really. Was it this school beat Cymru or something? Well, in our part of the world, it's PC Gale in the north of the county. That's how everybody refers to it. You know, that was a clear, strong link between a school and the Dyfed Powys police. And I do have worries about that because it's a friendly face of the police to the school children, and hopefully it would engender some confidence as well in that relationship. Has that been looked at in this report at all?
This hasn't, that's not been commented on in this report.
Sorry, Sarah?
That what School Beat does feature, it was, you know, talked about as part of the inspection, but it doesn't, the funding doesn't feature in the JICPA report.
To be fair, the funding, the reduction of funding wouldn't have been available at the time of the writing of the report. So any future reports may see the impact of that removal, mightn't it?
Yeah, no, I was wondering what the reaction of the education team is to that withdrawal of that funding and possible reduction in support for the children in the school setting. I was just wondering whether that will have negative impacts.
That's a better worded approach to that, really. So Lynette, yeah, what impact do you see coming from that?
Yeah, we really do value the work that's gone on as part of the School Beat programme in our schools. It was part of, as it said, it's not commented in the narrative here, but it was some of the evidence used to show partnership working across our schools and the police work that they do in our schools, which we value highly. So when we receive notification that obviously there will be that will be limited, we've yet to see the impact of that, but certainly we have valued that work of School Beat going into our schools, and it you know it did form part of the evidence base for the partnership working for the JICPA.
Yeah, obviously it's a very positive report, but I think that's something that Scrutiny could perhaps highlight there, Aled, what impact that reduction will mean to future reports in the future, or the impact on the partnerships working. I think that's quite an important point there, really. Okay, Sarah.
Okay, lovely. So just on to the final section, so prevention and the partnership working element. So it found that many children in Powys benefit from early help, that there are good relationships between children's services practitioners at the front door and their partners. The availability of partners can be a challenge. The coordination and consistency of preventative services could be improved, and there were some gaps with files. Looking at the education element, pupils feel listened to in school and have a strong voice. Vulnerable pupils are supported well. There is a good use of a one-page profile. There's good range of strategies to support pupils with anxiety. There's strong support for families from schools, for example, with family liaison workers. And there's innovative work led by the education psychology team to support vulnerable pupils. So again, in this section, there isn't really a however for education. So that's kind of taken us through those 4 areas of the report. Just stop sharing. And outlines the headline findings really from the inspection. And as Lynette said at the beginning, and as we've discussed throughout, there's now a need for us to collaboratively write an action plan, which will be returned to the inspectors.
Good. Opportunity there for further questions.
Chair, just to say that, you know, it's generally a really good report, and very pleased with the team.
Thank you, Sue. Yeah, we'll echo those thoughts many times, I'm sure. Councillor Aled.
Yeah, I agree with what Sue was saying there. But the action plan that flows out of this, maybe possibly we could do a bit of joint scrutiny of that with Councillor Amanda's forgotten the name of the scrutiny committee. But because sometimes when we just look at the education slightly disjointed, especially since at the moment we've got a director who's responsible for both areas.
Yeah.
Hi, Georgie. Georgie's got some comment.
Thank you, Councillor Gwynn. Can you hear me okay? Because I've got my headset on, so I just lovely.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to really say that the minute our JICPA was over, we'd already begun writing the elements that were linked to education, and we've been really proactive in looking at various things. So take, for example, looking at the fixed term exclusions, we've got a piece of work happening already that was offered to the 2 schools that we were aware of that had the highest numbers, and we've got a leading expert nationally coming in and working with those pastoral leads in that school, in those schools, and they're delivering training and specific elements of work around de-escalation and managing the more challenging behaviour that we know is being presented in our schools now. So from the piece of work that came out of that, we've already begun to look as part of our own IBP and built that in, as well as piece of work that we've begun to do. So I just sort of wanted to say that we're not waiting for the action plan, if you like. We're meeting with Sharon, obviously, and making sure we dovetail with all of the work of Children's Services and the other 2 providers. But from us as a collective, we've already begun that work and started to put actions in place, because it's the things that were identified to us, we had also identified, which Estin acknowledged, that, you know, we had really clear self-evaluation processes, and we knew what we were good at, and we knew what we needed to improve as well.
Good, thank you, Georgie. Gives us a certain assurance around Alan's comment. Councillor Sue.
Thank you for that, Georgie. I was just wondering, how many children are we talking about here? Do we know?
In terms of the fixed term exclusions,
Yeah.
we know percentages, and Sarah might know that detail more, but we know percentages, and we know we've identified specific schools that are, you know, have higher numbers than we would like, and we've begun that work with those, and we're looking at trends as well. So another thing, you know, is how that's working with some of the ALN work as well, because ALN learners and deprivation learners are linked at times to some of those challenges. Not all of them, some, you know, that's not a sweeping statement in any saying, but we have seen a few of those trends as well. So it's part of the ALM review that we're going to be carrying out to the behaviour need and challenges that are happening as well at the moment as a collective. But we are aware of the schools, and we are aware of those percentages, and watching the trend as well. So that work has begun directly with those schools.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Chair.
Thanks, Georgie.
Thank you, Georgie.
Councillor Allen.
Yeah, thanks, Georgie, for that. You know, there's so many linkages here, isn't there? You know, ALN, and I just go back to the through as well, the different way of delivering that service. In the scrutiny we had last week sometime, we weren't, well, I certainly I wasn't left very with a clear of an understanding of how that changing role will work, as you know, there's potential talk of satellite type places within schools. I was just wondering, Chair, would it be possible to pull all this together when we get that the official response to this report, so we get a clear understanding of the whole area, a bit of information around with numbers and everything else. Thank you.
Muted there for some reason. Yeah, no, it seems a natural continuation, so I don't have a problem with that. And I don't think it'd be too much extra work. Margaret.
Yeah, could I agree entirely with what Ali has just said? Because listening to Georgie and saying what you've already begun to work on, etc., was really heartening. But I wanted to ask, how is all that going to be looked at by scrutiny? And because it's so essential what you're doing to follow on from this and widening and linking it. So I think I would just agree entirely with what Alex said, but how actually will it come to scrutiny, in what forms? Because I do think it's an area that does, you know, scrutiny needs to look at with more factual information and statistics, etc.
Okay, Georgie.
Yes, dear Councillor Margaret, what I would say is, as part of the ongoing work now that we're doing, it is about coming back to our ALN strategy, which is inclusive of behaviour as well, and how for example, the priorities we had were pre-COVID, as we all know. So obviously it's a very different picture now in schools following the COVID pandemic. So piece of this work is around looking at those priorities, whether they're correct now, whether they still need to remain. We know that we've been identified as an LA by Estin as a strength with our processes and systems. So now it's around that practical support and what that looks like. So the findings of that review, I would envisage us presenting here to yourselves and sharing with you how that's going to shape our future work. In terms of the behaviour work that's already begun, obviously we are including the head of the PRU in that with us, because he does our training, our FBA training in schools and elements of work there as well. So they do dovetail, but at the same token, at the moment, we need to make sure that we're providing more support in schools to help learners remain in mainstream as much as possible. That is the best place for them to be learning. And that is the best learning environment and experience for them, for the majority, you know, in Estin terms, nearly all. You know, obviously there is a place for learners that aren't that sort of flourishing in that environment, but for the majority of them, we do need to do what we can to help our workforce in managing what they're facing at the moment following the COVID pandemic. But those findings can be brought here. That's not a problem. Really building on the presentation Simon did a while ago around the ALN and where we are and those challenges.
Okay, thanks, Georgie. Lynette.
Yeah, I was just going to come in and say to the committee, really, you know, how would you like to look at it, really? I mean, we've got certain, I know we've looked at, you know, sort of been a lack of data in the past, but I think in terms of data now, in terms of fixed term exclusions, those are some of the things that we can bring. Attendance figures, that's going to be a big feature now with Estin going forward. So really, you know, how would you like to look at it? And we will be able to provide that evidence for you alongside bringing it all back together, really. So open to whatever scrutiny committee would like us to bring to the table around some of this work. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul, for those assurances. Yeah, we as a scrutiny committee have to decide where we pick that up now, really. Does that come in within our ALN review, or do we need to be more specific on that? Go on, Lynette.
I think you can be as specific as you like. It's up to you. You know, if you want to look at certain figures, like today, you mentioned the fixed term exclusions, for example. If you want to look at that to see the trends, etc., those are the sorts of things that we can bring to the table. So we can be as specific or as generic as scrutiny would like to be, really.
Okay, there we go. Do you want to bear that in mind when we look at future work programs, or do you want to concentrate your mind and put something in place from today? Go on, Aled.
Yeah, Chair, when does this response have to be with, who is it going back to? Welsh Government or CAW or Estin or so many different?
Yeah, it goes back to them all, Councillor Aled, all the
Okay.
regulators. Yeah, so we've got 6 weeks from the publication, so we're about week 4.
Another month or so.
Yeah, month or so. Yeah.
Okay. Ideally, as close as need to look at this as close as possible to that date, really. But and will they come back to you afterwards? Do they have a fixed time scale to respond, or could it be?
Yeah, they will come back to us to say whether or not they accept the action plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so is the suggestion we look at the action plan in the first instance when that's completed?
Mm.
Yeah, so we'll bear that in mind when we're doing our work program. Okay, does that complete this item? Thank you very much. I think in the first instance, Sarah, thanks for taking us through the report. As usual, you're very clear on the information in the report. We thank you for that. Lynette, Georgie, please pass it down the team. I think praise where praise is due. It is a very well read or well written report in relation to education, and I think that should be recognised. And I know, Lynette, when we were first talking of this as an agenda item, I know you were very keen to bring it to us because yes, it's nice to have a report which has this content, and rightly so. The education department should be praised for it. So yeah, well done. Are you coming in there, back in there, Lynette? Yeah.
If I may, just to thank you
Yeah.
for comments, Councillor Gwynfor, a huge amount of work from both education and children's services, of which, you know, I'm currently the director of both, so I know how much work went into this. And just thank you for the comments from Scrutiny to identify the fact that overall, this is a really good report and shows good practice going on in both education and children's services in Powys. So thank you very much, Chair.
Great stuff. Thank you all for all of that. We takes us to item 6 on our agenda, the work programme. Members, it's scroll down to 49 and 50. It's quite relevant in view of what we've been speaking about now, but I'm open for anything to be populated on that. I'm just scrolling down myself. There we go. It's there for anybody to comment, anything to add. And anything you want to populate in the future, really. Everybody content? We've got our Trochee working group commencing very shortly. I would suggest it's next Monday, but I'm not really sure. And Councillor Bryn, Councillor Allen, myself, Sarah, and also Councillor Danny have expressed an interest to be on that, so that's up and running as well. Anything else you want added or would like to consider in some time? No, everybody content? Councillor Lucy, your microphone as well, please.
Sorry, lost my mouth then. Yeah, I just wondered, with the school's transformation, we're talking about the 10-year capital programme in March, but are we looking at the wider transformation programme, or are we only looking at the capital?
Good question.
And is there an opportunity there to discuss where we've got to on the wider programme?
I would say that would be included in there. Yeah, or we make sure that it's included in there. That's a better assurance for yourself.
Yep.
Make officers aware of that. Yeah.
Yes,
Thank
please.
you.
Yeah, it's a good point.
Yeah, is it possible to squeeze this response to today's report in March somewhere or not? Or that asking too much?
I don't think it is. I don't think it'll be an extensive piece of work, will it, for us? So yeah, no, it'd be interesting to be the follow-up for this, wouldn't it, Lynette?
Yeah.
I was just going to come back in there, Chair, in relation to transformation and just say that really we've got a strategic outline plan that needs to be in by the end. But I think in terms of that as a start to look at the strategic outline plan, the SOP to start, and then look at each of the strategic aims as we go forward. It'd be too much probably to do all in one go. So that may be a consideration in the forward work programme.
Okay. Yeah, no, I understand that it might be too heavy a workload, but should we take that in the first instance and add to it how the discussions go? Yeah.
We've got to pile in a huge amount of work before the end of March. That's my main aim.
Good. I noticed the smirk on your face. Councillor Lucy.
Just looking at Lynette, I was.
Councillor Lucy.
Thank you, Gwynfor. It was just a thought. I was contacted again in the last couple of days about school transport still and outstanding issues in terms of people who haven't been able to get transport to their desired school, even though their understanding was that they were eligible for it. I don't know whether there's any scope for anything for Scrutiny to be looking at that again. I know that the latest transport and admissions policy are out for consultation. Whether there's any opportunity to comment on that when the consultation results are back in, or I don't know, just a thought.
Yeah, I think it's a relevant thought. I'm just trying to think aloud now. Yeah, I think we should be involved in that, really. There was a train of thought, and we've got to be careful we don't double up, but that piece of work actually went to economies previously, and we influenced it to come to us as well. So I'm just thinking, perhaps scrutiny officers can help me. Is this something in which will be on the economy and residence agenda, or because that's where it went before? Sarah, your microphone, I believe, Sarah. Thank you.
Yes, sorry. I was just going to say, Chair, it's the annual admissions consultation we're required to carry out as part of the statutory code, and it's utilising the maps that were approved by Cabinet early last year.
Can I raise a
Go
point
on,
there?
Councillor Brent.
Yeah, I'm slightly surprised the maps that have come back were as approved by the Cabinet. Well, what did you say, early last year?
Yes.
Because the area I represent was split 3 ways, and it was objected to, and I think the objections were accepted, but the maps have come back as if they haven't been haven't been accepted. I was specifically talking about Llanwddyn, which is split into 3 directions, and it was agreed to leave it as one, and now it's come back split up again.
Okay, Sarah, don't answer that today.
No,
Let's consider whether
Yeah.
this suggests that we should be looking at the responses from that consultation. Should we be doing that briefly before when it's concluded? We did make some scrutiny recommendations last year, so it'd be interesting to see if those scrutiny recommendations have been influenced in that, wouldn't it? Is there a piece of work to be done there, or are we? Go on, Sarah. Sorry, I cut you off before.
I was just going to say that the consultation ends on the 1st of March. The responses have to be reviewed, and then the 25-26 admissions arrangements have to be ratified by the 15th of April.
Okay. I'm just thinking, should we as a scrutiny meeting be part of that consultation? I'm asking the question really more than saying we should be.
That
makes sense.
I think that we should be inputting.
Mm.
Yeah.
Is that feasible before the end of March?
It's got to be before isn't the 1st of March the consultation, wasn't it? You say?
Yeah.
Oh, 1st of March. Okay.
Our input doesn't have to be part of the formal consultation, does it, or can it be?
Okay. Again, we do it now and then. Is it a possibility that we form a comments from? I'm not sure, Kath, you're going to help me now. Have we previously done it? There's a terminology for the documentation that sends around. Can we do it by almost virtual scrutiny? That's the word I was looking for. Would that be an idea?
I can be guided by yourselves, but yes, obviously we can do that.
Would that be an acceptable option?
I believe we've done it before in respect of the annual admissions consultation.
Should we have a go at that, members? A little bit of extra homework for ourselves? Yeah, I've got Margaret and Carol nodding. Aled's almost nodding. And Bryn's skeptical. Yes, Bryn's saying yes. Okay, that's what we'll do, if that's okay. Kath, are you able to accommodate that, or is that going to be a difficult time in the time?
We'll accommodate it.
Okay, thank you very much, Kath. That's what we'll do. Anything else on work programme? Again, this is before us today, but members very open and welcome to add things and suggest things openly outside of a meeting as well. So let's not get too bogged down on detail, but yeah, we can add and take away as we wish. Yeah, anything else on work programme then?
No, thank you.
Good. I believe that brings us to, I've lost my agenda now, but I'm sure it takes us to any other business. So members, anything else anybody wishes to raise? If not, I thank you all for your meeting today. It's nice to have a short meeting, particularly because it's a Friday afternoon. But that open welcome to stay on after and have a quick chat if need. So we'll do that. Thanks, officers, members, and anybody watching at home, which there is. Thanks for your attending today, and very grateful. So I bid you farewell and stay on if you want to have a quick chat afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.